Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to, cut through the noise and get you truly well-informed fast. Today, we are plunging into something, genuinely fascinating, a really significant economic shift happening on the global stage. We're talking about a development that looks set to transform a market that's been, shall we say, pretty insular, opening doors that were firmly shut before. The core topic, Saudi Arabia's groundbreaking decision to open its real estate market to foreign buyers. And there's a landmark date, January 2026. So our mission in this deep dive is basically to pull out the key insights from the source material we've reviewed, giving you a clear picture of what this means for the global landscape. We're going to unpack the what, where, who, and why of this new opportunity, and also, the potential implications and things you should consider, whether you're just watching with interest or maybe even thinking about investing down the line.
Exactly. And this isn't just about listing facts. We want to help you understand the strategy behind it, the drivers, and importantly, the complexities. It's a huge move.
Okay, so let's unpack this then. The big news. Starting January 2026, Saudi Arabia will allow foreigners to buy real estate, but crucially, only in specific designated zones.
Right.
This was confirmed by the Minister of Housing, Majed Al-Hogail. He called it a significant change for one of the Gulf's most closed markets.
And what's really fascinating here, I think, is the intent behind it. It looks like a controlled approach, but also very ambitious. They're clearly aiming to pull in significant foreign capital. But at the same time, they're trying hard to maintain the kingdom's unique cultural, religious, and social balance.
That delicate balance you mentioned.
Precisely. That seems to be the key challenge they're navigating.
And that delicate balance does sound like the core challenge. What happens if they don't quite manage that equilibrium? I mean, what are the sources suggesting could go wrong? Economic issues, social friction.
Well, the sources hint that if it's not managed carefully, a huge, uncontrolled wave of foreign money could cause social tensions, especially if, it pushes prices way beyond what ordinary Saudi citizens can afford. And there's also the potential for cultural shifts if the growth isn't kind of steered properly. It really is like a tightrope walk, balancing that rapid modernization with preserving their core identity.
Okay, so geographically speaking, initially it's Riyadh and Jeddah. They're the first cities opening up to international investors.
The main commercial centers.
Exactly. And Makkah and Medina, obviously hugely significant religious cities. They'll follow later, but with special rules.
And those rules aren't defined yet.
No, not yet. It's important for you to know that the specific permitted areas, the detailed conditions for buying, all that is still being hammered out in executive regulations by the Real Estate General Authority. It's definitely a developing situation. And in terms of what you can buy, the material says both residential and commercial properties, and possibly even agricultural land, but again, only within those specific designated zones.
So the big question, who can actually buy?
Good question.
The new rules apply to both foreign residents, people already living there, and non-residents. So that really does open it up to, a pretty broad international audience, lots of new opportunities there.
And for anyone listening who might be thinking about moving faster, there is actually an existing route, right?
There is, yes.
You can already buy property using a premium residency visa tied to real estate.
But it's not cheap.
No, it requires a minimum investment of 4 million Saudi riyals, which is roughly 1.1 million US dollars. So quite a commitment. And what about support on the ground? We're seeing some signs.
Yeah, slowly. Local and international brokers are starting to offer bilingual support, English and Arabic.
Right.
But it's worth noting, many of the official websites, the information platforms, they're still mostly in Arabic. So language can still be a bit of a hurdle.
Okay. Now here's where it gets really interesting for me. The timing. The strategic timing of this whole thing. It doesn't feel like a random date, does it?
No, absolutely not. If you connect this to the bigger picture, this opening aligns perfectly with Saudi Arabia's huge push for major sporting and cultural events.
Like the World Cup.
Exactly. Hosting the FIFA World Cup in 2034, the Asian Winter Games in 2029, big global events. It's not just about boosting their global profile, though that's part of it. It's very much about attracting direct foreign investment into the infrastructure needed for these events.
Ah, okay.
This move is a really key piece of their Vision 2030 plan, which, as our source nicely puts it, is all about rewriting the rules of the game.
Rewriting the rules. That's a strong statement. So beyond just, the image boost, What specific economic goals are they chasing by linking real estate opening with these mega events? Is it mainly about tourism cash, or is there more to it?
Oh, it's definitely multifaceted. Tourism investment is certainly a big part. Think hotels, leisure facilities, but it's also much broader. It's about driving urban development, creating these vibrant new economic zones, and fundamentally diversifying the economy away from oil dependency. Think about it. You need housing for all the professionals moving in. You need retail spaces, offices, all the businesses that spring up around these huge projects.
Right, the whole ecosystem.
Exactly. And foreign investment in real estate provides the direct capital injection needed for that kind of ambitious growth.
And flipping it around, from an investor's point of view, the advantages look pretty compelling on paper. You've got strong internal demand already, infrastructure is expanding rapidly, and crucially, our sources point out that prices are still more competitive compared to other Gulf markets like the Emirates.
That's a key point.
It really highlights the potential for, well, significant long-term appreciation, especially in those specific zones they're opening up.
But this brings us to an important question. What about the potential roadblocks? The risks for investors jumping into this, well, fast-changing market? It's not going to be completely smooth sailing, presumably.
No, definitely not.
God.
And those regulatory hurdles sound like they could be significant. What's the main variable there, do you think? Is it just the speed everything's changing at, or maybe inconsistency in how rules are applied? What's the biggest worry for a foreign buyer?
That's probably a bit of both, I'd say. The regulatory framework is still, evolving. It's being built as we speak almost. So getting continuous updates and clarity will be absolutely vital. Beyond that, yeah, the sources flag potential issues with residency permits, maybe some fragmented bureaucracy, different departments not quite joined.
Classic growing pains.
Could be. And non-uniform services, depending on where you are, plus those language limitations we mentioned. The material really hammers home the need for good local legal advice. Seriously, proper consultation to manage these risks. It's not a market to just, dive into without guidance.
Makes sense.
And looking ahead, the material also brings up this interesting idea of a potential two-speed real estate market emerging.
What do you mean by two-speed?
Well, the area is specifically targeted by these huge Vision 2030 mega projects, places like Neomem or Diriyah Gate. Perhaps they're expected to get the lion's share of foreign investment.
Okay.
And so prices in those areas could grow much, much faster than in the rest of the country, creating that sort of two-tier or two-speed effect.
And we actually have some data on that already, don't we? Knight Frank estimates. Apartment prices in Riyadh are up almost 82% since 2019.
Wow.
Yeah, 82%. That is a staggering increase.
It really is.
But it also brings up that point our source raised about local wages. If property prices are skyrocketing like that, but wages aren't keeping up, what does that mean for the average Saudi citizen who wants to buy a home?
That is precisely the concern. It's the other side of the coin. Foreign investment is great for bringing in capital and driving development, but if local wages stagnate while prices inflate, well, it raises serious questions about affordability and accessibility for Saudi citizens themselves in their own country. It comes back to that delicate balance we talked about, making sure the growth actually benefits everyone, not just foreign investors or the very wealthy.
Right. A really crucial point. Okay, let's shift gears slightly and talk about the financial nuts and bolts for foreign investors. Taxes. What can people expect there?
Well, historically, Saudi Arabia has not applied a true property wealth tax,
Meaning,
meaning they generally haven't charged an annual tax based just on the value of the property you own. That's quite different from how it works in many other countries and can be a significant factor for investors.
okay, so no annual wealth tax historically. What is in place currently?
There's a 5% real estate transaction tax, RETT,
Okay.
and that's typically paid by the seller, not the buyer. Though, like anything, that could potentially be negotiated.
And the material mentions some exemptions.
Yeah, there are specific exemptions, things like passing property through inheritance or transfers between close family members. So some nuances there.
Got it. What about VAT, value-added tax?
Right, VAT, a 15% rate might apply, but generally only to commercial properties.
Not residential.
Residential properties are usually exempt from VAT, but you do need to factor in other potential costs.
Such as?
Things like registration fees, fees for connecting services like water and electricity, maybe building permits if you're developing, those kinds of ancillary costs.
Okay. And capital gains, if you sell for a profit.
Capital gains tax. Currently, it seems to be mainly limited to corporate or institutional sellers.
Not individuals.
Not typically for individuals right now. However, the sources do suggest it could be applied more broadly in the future. So that's definitely something for potential investors to keep an eye on as the regulations evolve.
Right, another thing that's still potentially in flux. So I guess the overall takeaway from the material is that the Saudi real estate market, while opening up, is very much still in an initial phase of expansion. Huge opportunities, yes, but also an evolving landscape.
Hmm.
It really does represent a massive opportunity, doesn't it? From 2026, foreign investors truly can become part of this kingdom that is, as the source says, rewriting the rules of the game. But I think the clear message is that careful planning, getting really solid local advice, and properly understanding this changing environment are absolutely crucial.
Absolutely. And the sources suggest that if it is managed well, with the right protections in place and careful planning by investors, this opening doesn't have to lead to runaway price inflation everywhere. Instead, it could actually help diversify the market, make it more competitive. Which leads to a final thought, perhaps, for you to consider. As global markets become more and more interconnected, how do these kinds of major economic reforms in one specific region, like Saudi Arabia opening its doors, actually reshape investment opportunities and maybe even social dynamics right across the world?
A powerful question to think about as you process all this. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive today. Keep exploring, keep asking questions, and most importantly, stay informed.